What is up, guys? It's Ravi back with Canada Custom Motorworks, and today we're going to be talking about putting packages together. So essentially, you've decided now that you want to do a full wheel and tire package, maybe some suspension work, and you're trying to figure out exactly where to start. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. There's a lot of information, especially in today's day and age with the internet. You're able to find so much stuff, and there's so many people that are creating content when it comes to fitment. Big thing that's super important is figuring out exactly what you want and building it for what you actually need it for. So there's a handful of reasons that you're building a truck. Number one, you're actually using it for work, so you actually need something that's going to be practical, a little bit higher up in the air. You have more clearance, bigger tires. Number two is just because it looks badass. You want something that looks sweet when you're driving around on the road and they just turned head, right? And the third one is probably like a happy medium between both. You want something sweet, looks good, but it's still practical when you want to use it on, for jobs, but essentially you don't really need it for work, right? You're not building like a build for off-roading, or if you're wheeling with it, you're building a truck more for just aesthetics, making it look a little bit nicer, right? Okay, so we have three things that we want to figure out. Obviously, the wheels, the tires, and the suspension. Big thing is planning it out so you know exactly what you're gonna do. So the first is start with suspension. So the reason I say start with suspension is everything else kind of tailors down after that. Don't get me wrong, if you end up picking up some sweet deals on like just the wheels, on the tires, and then you want to piece it together the other way around, that works too. But this is if you're buying everything brand new and you're going to be kind of figuring it out. Best thing to do is start with suspension, because then you know exactly kind of where you want to be in regards to how big of a tire you can fit and how aggressive of a tire you can actually put on the truck or the car. Sorry, not the car, the SUV, because we lift level SUVs and trucks, right? But big thing is, so if it's a leveling kit, if it's a full 4-inch or 6-inch plus suspension lift, or if it's like a happy medium with like the SST kits that's, or smaller rough country kits, it's super important that you know exactly where you're starting off within regards to suspension as well. That being said, when you come into suspension, look at the age of your truck. If you have an older vehicle, go with kits that come with new struts. It's like, two birds, one stone. You're already lifting it up. Get a kit that already has the components that are going to be wearing and tearing on that truck, and get them replaced at the same time as the lift is going in, or you're doing the lift kit. It's just easier to do everything right the first time. So if you got like CVs, if you got heavy duty CVs that are going into it, doing upper control arms, front end like ball joints, there's a bunch of stuff when it comes to doing it. If it's an older truck or an older SUV, get that stuff done in the beginning, so when you have a good base to start off with. And then go on, if you're going on to like a bigger or newer truck, then obviously you can go with a more basic kit because your truck is pretty much new, but like I said, if it's built for being a work truck, looking at things like coilovers, looking at things like lifted struts, looking at nicer kits is always going to future proof your build. Number two is do the wheels. So now you know how big of a lift or level you're going to go with. The wheels can determine how wide you're going to be. Obviously stats, if you're going with something kind of closer to factory, if you're going with 7.5s, 9 wides, if you want a little bit of poke, you're going with 10 wides. If you want something a little bit more aggressive, you're going 12s, 14s, and then you get the crazy builds that are going like 16, right? And even more aggressive than 16 too, if you want something super custom built. But that will determine what size tire you can run, because offset is a big determination of how big of a tire you can fit. If you're on sites like BDS, rough country, you'll see that the listed sizes and then tires are always changing according to the offset and the width of the wheel, which is super important. The wider your wheels are, the more likely you are going to be to rub if you're running too big of a tire. So going off of a wider wheel, wider offset, you want to make sure that it is dialed in. Once you get the wheels figured out, because there's so many different styles, there's a bunch of stuff. Once you have the widths figured out and what you want to do, remember there's great websites too for reference. Even if you're using AI, like ChatGPT is super good at kind of calculating things like that. There's some great websites. Like our website's pretty good too. We have our gallery that's going to be going up. But you could check like custom offsets, you could check a whole bunch of different places that'll have really good information on what builds are done. And make sure you, whenever you're doing a build, you base it off of a handful of builds. Don't just go off of one build that the guy did. Yeah, I fit 40s on this thing stock, bro. It's like, no, it didn't happen, dude. Right? So make sure when you are looking at the websites, or you're looking at different places, if you're on forums, if you're on Reddit forums, if you're on your truck forum for your whatever make model you have, your SUV forum, make sure you're referencing it off of multiple people that have done the same build if you don't want any complications. If you want to push the limits, do it. You know what I mean? That way, now that you've figured out what you want to do with the build, you know exactly what to do. So you got the suspension, then you got your wheels, and you got your tires right after you're done the wheels. Gives you a good base to go off of, so you know you're not going to run into problems like fitment issues, stuff that's not clearing, caliper issues. Video this time, but hopefully that information was helpful. Like I said, we're always happy to help you guys out, even if you're not a customer of ours or you're not going to be getting services done. We're always happy to at least guide you in the right direction. You can always shoot us a message or leave a comment below, and we'll get to your messages as soon as possible. Thank you.